So, to kick us off with our first presentation for the session, it's my pleasure to introduce Julia Kabelik from OMV in Austria. Julia is the GIS manager at OMV's refinery in Schwechat, Austria, where she's responsible for bringing information and value towards the refinery's core business objectives. Julia has a bachelor's degree in geoinformation and environmental technologies and a master's in spatial information management, both from Carinthia University of Applied Sciences in Austria. Having specialized in remote sensing, Julia has worked over the past 5 years for a company that gathers laser, thermal, hyperspectral, and imagery data from planes. She's now applying those skills at OMV in spearheading their vision of a geospatial digital twin. With that, Julia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much for your nice introduction, and welcome everybody to my presentation today about Turnaround Planning 2.0 at OMV Downstream Refining and Marketing. Today, I'm going to tell you about a GIS timeline. So we only started in 2019. What have we been doing since then, and where are our future plans? Then I'm going to tell you what is a turnaround, so about which topic I'm talking today. Then I show you how a typical planning workflow happened so far and how GIS helped us to improve that workflow. At OMV Downstream Refining and Marketing, we only started in 2019 when my colleagues decided to implement a pilot GIS and go with the Esri products. When in the first year, their main task was a data capturing. They did aerial imageries for all of our 3 refineries. We have one in Burghausen in Germany, one in Romania in Petrom, and one in Schwechat in Austria, where I'm located. The next step for them was to do a lot of survey for coordinate transformations. Each refinery has its own coordinate system. And when we look at Schwechat, we have 2 refinery coordinate systems in only one refinery. So as you can imagine, we had a lot of surveys and calculations to get the right coordinate transformations from the own refinery systems to the official ones. And as a last step, we have a lot of 2D plans, and they needed to be reworked because the plans were old and not really GIS ready. So these were the main tasks that my colleagues needed to do, so that at the beginning of 2020, they were able to launch the GIS pilot for a handful of key users. In March 2020, I joined the OMV family as a GIS manager, and my main task in the first year were a lot of quality check and GIS evaluations, because as you can imagine, our plot plans or 2D AutoCAD plans were really old. They were good for the time being, but if we now have a high resolution orthophoto and put our layer over that, you can see a lot of differences. So we had, for example, a few buildings that were missing, a few buildings that have a completely new structure now, and sometimes also the plant and the equipment inside one plant was inconsistent. So we needed to go one step back and did a rework of this plan again. The next task that I had was I had no refinery background. So it was important for me to get to know the refinery way better and to have a lot of workshops with different departments to see where the GIS can be used. One department that I found out that can use the GIS without really a lot of content in it was the turnaround department. The only thing that they needed in the GIS was a high resolution orthophoto and a layer where they were able to edit things. So therefore, I took most of my power to this turnaround department and to see how we can optimize their turnaround workflow. One project that may also be interesting is a pilot started at the end of 2020 and will be finished this year in June, is a cooperation with a SAP HANA department. They are doing their work permit, their e-work clearance in the new SAP HANA, and they only have a basic map there with only a handful of information. So if they now set their pins to see where somebody is working, the map is really crowded and you can't really see where the refinery you are. So now we have implemented an interface with a geo-enablement framework where SAP HANA is now able to get our information from the GIS and visualize it in their e-work clearance application. So now they can really see the equipment, the technical places, and so on, and have a way better visualization for their work clearance. In 2021, so at the beginning of this year, we had a rollout of basic informations to all 3 refineries. Basic informations were streets, building, and safety and security objects. And we have planned a lot of pilot projects this year. So the biggest one may be the 3D pilot, because we not only have 2D plans of our refineries and equipment, but also 3D data, like point clouds, 3D models, and meshes. And we want to visualize all of this data within the GIS so that we don't need expert software or expert licenses or even a special education, that we can look at that 3D data. So this is one of our pilots this year. We have a second one with routing and navigation, where we are testing 2 different methods. We have one inactive navigation, where we are using QR codes, because within the refinery, we don't really have good GPS or Wi-Fi. So we're testing these QR codes. And within a magazine, which is a closed building, we are using beacons. So this is the second pilot. In the end of the year, we want to implement a 4D function. Well, this one is depending on the 3D pilot, but at least we want to have a 2D time slider. And one workflow that is following us for the next few years is to extend it 2D and later on also 3D content, so that we get more and more information into our GIS. By the end of 2025, beginning 2030, our big goal is to have a digital twin for all 3 refineries from a documentational side. So we really want to visualize all available 2D and 3D data and make the data also intelligent. So we don't only want to visualize our 3D models, but also get information out of them or have interfaces to other softwares. So now I've used the word turnaround a lot. What am I talking? What is a turnaround? Well, a turnaround is a planned and regularly occurring engineering event that does either install a new plan, overhaul an existing one, or remove a redundant plant. And as you can see on the image below, there's a lot of planning behind it. So before we go into the refinery and touch anything, we have at least 24 months of planning before that. And within those long planning phase, we and the GIS can help the turnaround team. So how did the old typical planning workflow looks like? Well, we have a 3D printer plan that we print, we put it on a table, and within a workshop, we do some redlining. Like on picture 2, you can see these green squares. These are, for example, our containers. We have some green stars. These are our embedding points. We plan it. When the meeting is finished, we give that plan to a partner company. They do the redlining, the adaptation of the plan, and give that plan back to us. Well, as you saw on the last slide, these are 2 years of planning. So this process is not only happening once, but a lot of time. So we saw a lot of problems, and also the turnaround team said that these problems are occurring because it's time and cost consuming. So each redlining needs to be paid, needs to be given to the partner company. You can't see any ad hoc changes, because if I miss a meeting, well, I don't know what had happened. So duplicate data can occur. I can plan my own containers when the other party is already planning. So there's no parallel project planning possible. And we need to check each time the redlining of the partner company. Have they done everything? Did they forget anything? And so on. So the main pros that we saw by switching now from this old 2D printed planning to the more flexible GIS side is that we decrease the planning time by providing predefined objects. Like we have an object catalog with cranes, containers, and so on. And instead of drawing each of these objects manually, we can drag and drop them. We can share the infrastructure between different departments because we have one single source information system for area planning, and that is our GIS. And with that, we also avoid redundant data because each and every OMV employee knows what's going on, because everybody can see the data. And moreover, we also can increase the safety because we can visualize, for example, risky areas like X-rays. So you either know that you need to walk around it or that you need special work equipment. How did we do it at the OMV? Well, we now have a web GIS that is accessible for each and every OMV employee, but with a user management. So if we have, for example, confidential data, like where's a camera placed, not everybody should see it. But for the turnaround planning, every OMV employee should see the data. So where is something happening? Where did we plan something? But only a handful of people can really edit the layer and change something. We have those predefined planning objects with the object catalog, where we have cranes, containers, emboning points, and many more. We have a start and end date as a must-have information, which is really important because we now have a lot of information in the GIS, a lot of planning for each year. And with the start and end date, everybody can see from when till when is an area reserved. So if I need a specific area from June till October, and I see there's a container, I can click on it and get the additional information that this container is only here till May. So I have no problem if I want to use that area starting in June. And in the future, we want to visualize all of this planning also with our 3D models, which you can see here on the right-hand side. We have a point cloud, we have a 3D models. We want to get all of those into the GIS and make them also intelligent. So not only visualizing them, but we want to click on it and get additional information. Well, that was now all theoretical. We have a few screenshots, but to really visualize you how easy it is now for a turnaround team, I also provided a short demo. So you can see here our GIS with the information. You can see the buildings, the streets, and so on. On the left-hand side, you can see the turnaround. So we have a predefined view. You can either click for each year to see the planning, or you visualize the complete one. Here now you can see we have different colored areas. So each type of an area has an own color. We have power distributors. We have security and health signs. We have lightnings and traffic information. And the deeper you zoom in, the more information will be shown to you. We just restricted it so that the map is not crowded at the beginning. If I now want to add something to my workflow or to the planning, I can easily go to the object catalog. You can choose here between security information, aerial information, pins, infrastructure, cranes, cleaning, traffic signs, and many more. If I want to add an area, I can either draw it manually or can easily copy it out of the object catalog. Here again, have a few different options. I have double container, triple container, specific containers like smoking containers. If you go to the map, you have here a preview. So you can see how your container looks like, the size. You can give it a different name, like this is an office container. From the type, it's a normal double container, and it will be here for about 1 year. If I then place my container on the map, I have the possibility to rotate the object so that it fits to my needs. And if I click on Save, everything is directly stored into the GIS database. So if someone now opens the GIS, he can see my newly planned office container. If I now want to add a second one, I just go back, click again on double container, and you can see that the container is automatically in the same orientation like the first one. And I also have the possibilities to snap it directly to the first container so that we have a seamless planning. Again, I give this one a new name. It's OMV meeting container. So it's an OMV own container. That's why I give it also the type OMV container. This one is only here till October this year. So I enter that date, click again on Save, and you can now see that we have a different color. So through the visualization to the different colors, it's easy to see which area is here and to whom it belongs. If, for example, draw a more difficult object like a crane, we also have here some predefined objects. You can either check if it fits to the street, or you can just place it into the area you want. Again, you can rotate the crane in any direction you want. You can give it a name. I just keep it here the same name as it is a type. And then you need to give it a start and end date. By clicking on Save, again, it is directly stored in the geodatabase, and everyone can see it now. A few cranes have crane arms. So we also can add that by the function add a crane arm. We can decide where we want to put it. So either on the back of the crane, in the middle, or at the beginning. If you click on it, you can see this green dot, and this visualizes you the center of the crane arm. You can give it now a name, whereas I will just give it the same name as it's the type. Also for the company, you can say here to whom the crane belongs, but I just keep using the type, and then you can give it a radius of 50 meters, for example. Now the GIS automatically calculates you the radius, so you can either see the area where you shouldn't put anything like a container, or also if this crane arm reaches to the equipment that you want to check. Another thing that we can add are pins, for example, like editing points or working pins. If you click on the map, you can choose here between different types. We just use an embedding point. You can give it a height code so that everybody knows in which height he needs to work. You can give it a company name. So let's just say company A. And then we can choose between different stati. So open, in process, or finished. And again, we need to give it a start and end datum so that everybody knows from when till when there's something working. Now we have here the labeling. And if, for example, I am from company A and I say, oh, I'm going to work with this point, I can easily edit it, change the static to in progress, click on save. And as you can see, the dot now changes its colors. So even here we have different visualization for different stati and objects. If I'm now new, I was on holiday, go back and want to see what has happened in my planning, I can go to identify my objects, and I get the information that this one is an office container, that is here from the end of April 21 till the end of 22. I see it's a double container, so I know the size. I can give it additional comments, and I can see who created it and who changed it. So if I have any questions regarding that container or that crane, with this unique OMV identifier like Julia87, I know whom I need to contact. Well, with that said, I'm already at the end of my presentation. I hope it was able for me to make it clear how easy our turnaround, or in general, aerial planning has become. We can choose, or we can adapt these functions and layers to each and every project planning group at OMV. They get their own edit layer, they have their object catalog, their own user management, and then they already can start drawing. With that said, just a short notice, our legal disclaimer. So everything that I showed you today is strictly confidential and shouldn't be used without our notice. And with that said, I'm handing back to Suman. Thank you very much, and I'm looking to the Q&A. Thank you.